She'll never tell you this. But the moment you stopped trying to impress her, something shifted inside her mind. The moment you became comfortable with silence, with stillness, with not filling every gap in conversation, that's when she felt it. That pull, that tension, that undeniable curiosity. And here's what most men will never understand. Attraction isn't built through words. It's not built through clever lines or rehearsed stories or trying to be the most interesting person in the room. Attraction is built through behaviors you never speak about, through presence, through silence, through the things you don't do. This video is about 5 silent behaviors that lead any woman to bed. Not through manipulation, not through tricks, but through understanding something fundamental about feminine psychology that most men are completely blind to. And if you're tired of trying so hard and getting nowhere, if you're exhausted from performing and pretending, then what you're about to learn will change everything. Because the truth is this: high-value men don't chase. They don't explain. They don't perform. They simply exist in a way that makes women gravitate toward them. And today, you're going to learn exactly how they do it. You've been there. You meet someone. There's chemistry, or at least you think there is. So you do what you've been taught to do. You text her. You make conversation. You try to be funny, charming, interesting. You ask questions. You show interest. You make an effort. And at first it seems to work. She responds. She laughs. She seems engaged. So you keep going. You keep trying. You keep investing energy, time, attention. You think you're doing everything right. But then something changes. Her responses get shorter. She takes longer to reply. The energy shifts. And suddenly you're chasing something that's slipping away. You're working harder and she's pulling back further. And you have no idea why. So you analyze everything you said. Every text. Every joke. Every conversation. Wondering where you went wrong. Wondering what you could have done differently. And the frustration builds because you gave her effort. You gave her attention. You gave her everything you thought she wanted. But here's the brutal truth. Effort is not attractive. Attention is not attractive. Trying is not attractive. What's attractive is the opposite. It's the man who doesn't need to try. The man who's comfortable in his own presence. The man who doesn't fill silence with nervous energy. The man who exists without seeking validation. And this is where most men lose. Because they've been taught that attraction is about what you do, what you say, how you perform. But attraction isn't logical. It's primal. It's subconscious. It's triggered by behaviors that bypass language entirely. The ancient Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't talking about dating, but the principle is the same. The moment you stop trying to control her response, the moment you stop performing for her validation, that's when you reclaim your power. And ironically, that's when she feels the pull. Because attraction isn't built through effort, it's built through presence, and presence is silent. Let's talk about the first behavior, the foundation of everything else, unbothered presence. Most men are uncomfortable with silence. They feel the need to fill gaps in conversation, to keep things moving, to prevent awkwardness. And this reveals something: insecurity. Because when you can't sit in silence, it means you're seeking validation through engagement. You're afraid that if you stop talking, she'll lose interest. But high-value men understand something different. They understand that silence creates tension, and tension creates attraction. When you're comfortable with silence, when you can sit across from someone without needing to say anything, it communicates something powerful. You're not performing. You're not seeking approval. You're simply present. And that presence is magnetic. There's a psychological principle at play here. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Incomplete tasks create mental tension. When you don't fill every silence, when you don't answer every question immediately, you create a gap. And her mind will work to fill that gap. She'll start wondering what you're thinking, what you're feeling, why you're so comfortable with stillness when most men are scrambling to keep her attention. This isn't about playing games. It's about being genuinely unbothered. It's about being so secure in yourself that you don't need constant interaction to feel validated. And when she senses that, when she feels that, You're not performing for her. It triggers something primal, because most men are desperate for her attention, but you're not, and that makes you different. That makes you rare. I know someone who figured this out by accident. He went to a party, one of those crowded social gatherings where everyone's trying to be interesting, trying to stand out, competing for attention, and he walked in exhausted. He'd had a long week. He wasn't in the mood to perform, so he didn't. He grabbed a drink. He found a spot near the window, and he just stood there, observing, not engaging, not trying to join conversations, just present, comfortable, in his own silence. And something strange happened. Women started approaching him, not because he was the loudest or the funniest or the most charming, but because he was the only man in the room who seemed completely content being alone, the only man who wasn't trying. And that created curiosity. One woman came up and asked what he was thinking about. He looked at her, took a sip of his drink, and said, "Nothing important." Then he went back to looking out the window. No explanation, no attempt to keep the conversation going, and instead of walking away, she stayed. She kept talking. She kept trying to engage him, because his unbothered presence created a challenge. And women are drawn to challenges. He didn't plan it. He didn't strategize. He was just genuinely comfortable being still, and that comfort communicated more than any clever line ever could. That's the first behavior, unbothered presence. The ability to exist without needing external validation, without needing to fill silence, without needing to perform. Now let's talk about the second behavior, controlled eye contact without seeking approval. Most men get this wrong. They either avoid eye contact completely, which communicates insecurity, or they stare too much, which communicates neediness. Both extremes kill attraction, because both are rooted in the same problem. You're reacting to her instead of being grounded in yourself. High-value men hold eye contact differently. It's not aggressive. It's not needy. It's sovereign. They look at a woman the same way they'd look at a sunset, with appreciation, with presence, but without attachment, without needing anything in return. There's a difference between looking at someone and looking into someone. When you look at someone with neediness, you're scanning for approval. You're checking to see if she likes you, if she's interested, if you're measuring up, and she feels that. She feels the weight of your need, and it repels her. But when you look at someone with sovereign presence, you're not seeking anything. You're simply seeing her, acknowledging her, and then you look away. Not because you're nervous, but because you're not attached to the outcome. You're comfortable breaking eye contact because you don't need her validation. This creates something powerful. It creates a push-pull dynamic. You give her attention, then you take it away. Not strategically, not manipulatively, but naturally, because you're genuinely focused on your own experience, not hers. And when she feels that you're not desperate for her approval, it triggers attraction, because every other man is staring at her, hoping she'll notice him, hoping she'll validate him. But you're different. You look at her, you appreciate her, and then you move on. And that difference is magnetic. Here's what most men don't understand. Women are constantly being looked at, constantly being stared at, constantly being evaluated, and most of the time it feels like pressure, like expectation, like they're being objectified. But when you look at a woman with controlled, sovereign eye contact, when you see her without needing anything from her, it feels different. It feels like respect, like appreciation without agenda. And that's rare. That's powerful. The key is this. Your eye contact should communicate that you're not afraid of her, but you're also not obsessed with her. You're simply present. You see her. You acknowledge her, and then you return to yourself. Practice this. The next time you're talking to someone, hold eye contact for 3 seconds longer than feels comfortable. Not in a creepy way, not in a staring way, but in a grounded way, and then break it. Look away, not down, not nervously, but calmly, as if you just noticed something else that caught your attention. This subtle behavior communicates volumes. It says, I see you. I'm not afraid of you, but I'm also not desperate for you. And that combination is intoxicating. Now let's move to the third behavior. Physical proximity without explanation. Most men ask for permission to be close to a woman, not verbally but energetically. They hover, they wait for signals, they move cautiously, always checking to see if it's okay to step closer. And this caution kills sexual tension, because it communicates that you see her as the authority, as the gatekeeper, as the one with power. High-value men move differently. They don't ask for permission to occupy space. They simply move, not aggressively, not invasively, but with intentionality. They step closer when they want to hear better. They lean in when they're interested. They position themselves in her proximity without explaining why. This is about owning your physicality, about moving through the world with quiet confidence, about understanding that your presence is not an intrusion, it's an offering. And when you carry that belief, when you genuinely feel that your proximity is valuable, she feels it too. There's a concept in evolutionary psychology called kinesic escalation. It's the gradual increase of physical proximity and touch that builds sexual tension. But here's the key. It has to be done without seeking permission, not in a violating way, but in a confident way. You step into her space because you want to, not because you're testing to see if she'll allow it. When you move without explanation, without apology, it communicates dominance, not toxic dominance, not aggressive dominance, but social dominance. It says, I'm comfortable in my body, I'm comfortable in this space, and I don't need your permission to exist here. And when she feels that confidence, when she feels that you're not waiting for her approval, it triggers something primal. Because throughout human history, women have been attracted to men who move with purpose, men who claim territory, men who don't apologize for taking up space. This doesn't mean you ignore her boundaries. It doesn't mean you push past her comfort. It means you move with awareness and confidence. You step closer when it feels natural. You position yourself beside her instead of across from her. You create proximity that feels intentional, not accidental. There was this guy who understood this instinctively. He was at a bar, loud music, crowded space. He saw a woman standing near the edge of the bar, trying to get the bartender's attention. Instead of staying back, instead of waiting for an invitation, he simply walked up beside her, close, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. He didn't say anything, didn't introduce himself, didn't make small talk. He just stood there, occupying the space next to her, and after a moment she glanced at him. He glanced back, held eye contact for a beat, then looked away. Still no words. But the tension was building, because his proximity without explanation created a question in her mind. Who is this man? Why is he so comfortable standing this close? Why isn't he trying to talk to me? Eventually, she spoke first, asked if he was waiting for a drink. He nodded, said, yeah, and then went silent again. No attempt to keep the conversation going, no effort to impress her, just presence. By the end of the night, she was the one pursuing. She was the one asking questions. She was the one trying to keep his attention, because his physical proximity without explanation created a challenge, and his silence made him unpredictable, mysterious, different from every other man who'd approached her that night. That's the power of the third behavior. Physical proximity without explanation. Moving with intentionality, claiming space, existing in her orbit without apologizing for it. Let's talk about the fourth behavior, delayed responsiveness. This is where most men destroy attraction. They respond immediately to texts, to questions, to requests. And this immediacy communicates something brutal. You were waiting. You were available. You had nothing better to do than respond to her. High-value men understand that timing is everything. Not because they're playing games, but because they're genuinely busy, genuinely focused on their own lives. And when they do respond, it's on their terms, not hers. There's a psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. When rewards are unpredictable, when they come at variable intervals, the brain releases more dopamine than when rewards are consistent. And this creates obsession. When you respond immediately every time, you become predictable, reliable, safe. And safe is not attractive. Safe is boring. But when you respond at variable intervals, When she never knows exactly when she'll hear from you, it creates tension. It creates anticipation. It makes every response feel more valuable. This isn't about ignoring her. It's about having a life that's genuinely more important than your phone. It's about being so focused on your mission, your purpose, your own development that you don't drop everything the moment she reaches out. And when you embody that, when you genuinely prioritize your own time, it communicates something powerful. You're not desperate. You're not waiting around. You have options. You have priorities. And she's not at the center of your world. This triggers something primal. Because women are attracted to men who are focused on something bigger than them. Men who have purpose. Men who can't be easily distracted or derailed. And your delayed responsiveness proves that you're that man. Here's a practical example. She texts you at 8 p.m. Most men respond within minutes. But you're at the gym, or you're reading, or you're working on a project. And you don't even see the text until 10 p.m. And when you do see it, you don't respond immediately. You finish what you're doing, you shower, you relax. And then, if you feel like it, you respond. Not because you're playing a game, but because you have boundaries, because your time is valuable, because you don't exist to entertain her whenever she's bored. And when she experiences that, when she realizes that you're not at her beck and call, it creates respect. And respect is the foundation of attraction, because if she can control you with a text message, if she can pull your attention whenever she wants, you become a tool, a source of validation, not a man she desires. But when you're unpredictable, when your attention feels earned rather than given, it becomes valuable. And the more valuable your attention becomes, the more she'll work to keep it. The fifth and final behavior is the most powerful, and it's the one most men are too afraid to use: the unapologetic exit. Most men stay too long. They linger. They wait for closure. They hope things will change. They give endless chances, and this desperation destroys any remaining attraction. Because when you can't walk away, you communicate that you need her, that you're dependent on her, that your happiness is tied to her presence. High-value men understand that walking away is the ultimate power move, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a genuine expression of self-respect. When something no longer serves you, when someone no longer respects you, when a situation becomes toxic, you leave, without explanation, without justification, without looking back. This is Stoic philosophy at its core. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what we can control. And the only thing you can control is yourself, your actions, your boundaries, your willingness to stay or leave. You can't control her feelings, her choices, her behavior, but you can control whether you tolerate disrespect. And when you walk away from a woman who's playing games, who's testing you, who's disrespecting your time, it does two things. First, it preserves your self-respect, your dignity, your power. Second, it triggers her fear of loss, because most men don't walk away. Most men beg, they plead, they try to fix things. They lower their standards, they accept breadcrumbs. But you're different. You have standards, you have boundaries. And when those boundaries are crossed, you exit calmly, quietly, without drama, without explanation. Because high-value men don't need to justify their decisions. They simply make them and move forward. There's a dark truth here that most men don't want to face. The moment you become willing to walk away is the moment you gain all the power. Because attachment is weakness. Desperation is repulsive. But detachment, the genuine ability to be fine either way, is magnetic. I know someone who learned this the hard way. He was in a situation where he kept getting mixed signals. She'd be warm one day, cold the next. Responsive one week, distant the next. And he kept trying to figure it out. Kept analyzing. Kept hoping it would get better. Until one day, he just stopped. He didn't send a long text explaining his feelings. He didn't ask for clarity. He didn't try to have a conversation about where things were going. He just disappeared. He focused on his own life, his own goals, his own peace. And within a week, she reached out, suddenly warm again, suddenly interested, suddenly trying to get his attention, because his exit triggered her fear of loss. It made her realize that he wasn't going to wait around forever, that he had options, that he valued himself too much to tolerate uncertainty. He didn't go back immediately. He didn't reward her behavior. He stayed focused on himself, and that only intensified her interest, because now she was the one chasing. Now she was the one trying to earn his attention. The dynamic had completely flipped. That's the power of the unapologetic exit. It's not about manipulation. It's about self-respect. It's about understanding that your time, your energy, your presence, these things are valuable, and you don't give them to people who don't appreciate them. When you're willing to walk away, you stop being needy. You stop being desperate. You stop being controllable, and you become the most attractive version of yourself. So here's what I want you to do. For the next 72 hours, practice one of these behaviors. Just one. Don't try to master all 5 at once. Pick the one that resonates most with you, the one that feels most challenging. If you struggle with silence, practice unbothered presence. The next time you're with someone, resist the urge to fill every gap in conversation. Let the silence sit. Notice what happens. If you struggle with eye contact, practice sovereign looking. Hold eye contact for 3 seconds longer than feels comfortable. Then calmly look away, not down, not away nervously, but confidently. If you struggle with physical presence, practice intentional proximity. Step closer without asking permission, not invasively, but confidently. See how it changes the energy. If you respond too quickly, practice delayed responsiveness. Don't check your phone every 5 minutes. Live your life first. Respond when you're ready, and if you struggle to walk away, practice the exit. The next time someone disrespects your boundaries, leave. Without explanation, without drama. Just remove yourself from the situation and notice how it changes the dynamic. These aren't tricks. These aren't manipulations. These are behaviors that naturally emerge when you're grounded in self-respect. When you value your own time, when you're not desperate for validation. When you understand that your presence is the gift, not hers. And when you embody these behaviors authentically, when they become part of who you are rather than tactics you're using, everything changes. Because women don't fall for what you say, they fall for who you are. And these silent behaviors reveal who you are more than words ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He understood that power isn't external. It's not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself, your reactions, your attachment, your need for validation. And when you master yourself, when you become genuinely comfortable in silence, in stillness, in your own presence, you become irresistible. Not because you're trying to be, but because you're no longer trying at all. This is the paradox of attraction. The less you chase, the more you're pursued. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. The less available you are, the more valuable your time becomes. The more willing you are to walk away, the more people want you to stay. And this isn't about women. This is about life. This is about understanding that your power comes from within, from your ability to be unbothered, from your comfort with silence, from your willingness to exist without external validation. So if this video resonated with you, if something clicked, if you're ready to stop performing and start existing, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop a comment below. Tell me which of these 5 behaviors you're going to practice first. Tell me what you struggle with most. Because this community is built on honest men who are tired of the games and ready for the truth. We're not here to manipulate. We're not here to play games. We're here to understand the psychology of attraction, so we can stop wasting time and energy on strategies that don't work. We're here to become the kind of men who don't need to chase, because we're too busy building something worth being chased for. And that's the journey. That's the transformation. From performer to presence. From desperation to detachment. From seeking validation to being the source of it. This is Stoic truth, where silence becomes seduction.